Tom, why don't you start us off?
Okay, yeah, Courtney, if you could walk us through how you broke the news to your team, what the emotional reaction's been like, and just kind of the last week, what you've gone through.
Oh, it's been obviously a really challenging week for everyone involved, not just in the sports world, but for everyone. And so just looking at last week, there was just a lot of change really quickly. And so, you know, I have been just incredibly impressed just with our leadership from Hunter and Commissioner Sankey of just fighting for our student-athletes, making really tough decisions that's in their best interest. And then Hunter's just been incredible with communication with us, so I just appreciate that a ton. And, you know, for us in our position, I guess it was just relaying the information as we got it and being really mindful of, you know, what our girls were losing, but at the same point, just having a responsibility to educate them too on just what this means. So we went from Thursday of, you know, suspending till April 15th, and then, you know, they made their announcement to cancel championships, and then we went to Friday and had a new announcement, and then yesterday had the final announcement we had to do over a conference call similar to this of telling them that the season was canceled. So our team's very resilient. They've handled it really well. There's obviously a ton of emotion involved, but, you know, we've just tried to, you know, help them, support them through that, make sure we have a good amount of perspective, just looking at how other sports were, you know, they lost a ton. You know, you look at swimming, and they were a few days away from going to NCAA championships. And so just making sure we're keeping perspective, making sure they know that we're doing our small part in the big picture and helping us to move forward.
Okay, and are all your athletes back at home pretty much? Do you have any still on campus? Are you aware?
Yeah, we when we made the announcement on Friday that we were shutting down, it was just up to them and their families to decide where it was best for them to be and also how it was best for them to get there. So we have about half of them that have gone home and half that are still here. So it's going to change day to day, and they're just keeping us in the loop on that.
Coach Diefel.
Listen, Tara, what you got?
Yeah, if you can hear me, Coach. The NCAA has been talking about giving you back that year of eligibility, and they're still working through things like that. But when you think about that and your seniors like autumn storms, would it be something, especially in the sport of softball, that can be really utilized for you next year?
Oh, yes. I'm really hopeful that we haven't seen Stormy pitch in Bogle for the last time, or Ryan Jackson, you know, with the game on the line. So I'm really hopeful that the NCAA finds a thoughtful way for them, you know, that's going to work for everybody, for them to come back. But I definitely am hopeful that we get to keep all 6 seniors. You know, we're going to have a bigger roster size, and there's a lot of things that come with that. There's still a lot of decisions that need to be made. But as far as I'm concerned, that's a problem I would gladly tackle.
This is such uncharted waters for all coaches. What have you kind of learned through the past week, emotionally, about yourself and about your team?
You know, I think you're seeing it all over social media, but you just can't take anything for granted, and you just never know when something can end, you know, something that you've done your whole life. And a lot of our team's just kind of like, well, we've never had time off in the spring. So I think that's part of it, but I think it's also just reminding us that we're just a really small piece of the big picture, and just it you know, the whole thing moves and works when we all do our part. So I think our team's handled it really well. I think they've been resilient through a lot of things, and I think it's just how you choose to approach what we're doing and how we're going to move forward and how we're going to stay together through all of it.
You have 2 boys at home, a husband. You got all this free time. What's your schedule looking like? What are you doing with your time now?
Well, there's a lot of Frozen, too. I don't know if you can hear that in the back. A 4-year-old and 2-year-old boy that love Frozen, as all the other kids do. It's a lot of just trying to keep them from killing each other. And, you know, just finding different things to do every day. But I'm sorry, go potty. I welcome the family time, and just I enjoy it. So
I hear you. Thank you.
Sorry, we had a potty break right in the middle of that.
We've got Frozen 2 on repeat at our house too. It's okay.
Yeah.
Nate, do you have any questions?
No, not really. I'm fine.
Okay. Bob?
Hey, yeah, Kyle just got on. So, Courtney, I apologize. This has already been the NCAA has said, I guess they're considering giving seniors a year back. Have you even asked about that already?
Yeah, we talked about it a little. Their initial statement was not just regarding seniors, it was regarding everyone. So I think that for all spring sports, I think we're just really curious how that's going to be implemented or executed moving forward. And I do think it's important that we look at every year. And, seniors, they shouldn't end their career that way, but I also look at our freshman class, and they still had 40 games left ahead of them. So I hope that it's given back to everyone. I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered on how to do that. But I'm really optimistic and hopeful that they find a way that works for everyone.
With the recruits you have coming in, I guess they could expand rosters and scholarships and things, but is it practical, I guess, from a roster and a financial, standpoint?
Well, the roster size isn't anything we haven't dealt with before. Personally, my first year we had 31 on the roster. Is that ideal? No, but that's still more than, if everybody comes back, we get our seniors back, we have our incoming freshman class, everyone's here, we're at 28. I was on a conference call yesterday with SEC. They're just trying to navigate through roster sizes, travel squad sizes, and I think that there would have to be some kind of change moving forward. But as I said earlier, before you got on, that's a problem I'd like to tackle, because that means they all get their year back. So, I don't mind having to work through that for them to get that year back.
I'm sorry if you got to ask this too, and if you did, just say asked and answered. But I guess it's been about a week now. How are you handling it? How's your family handling it? Just, not being able to coach, and just what's it been like for you?
Well, it's really weird, to be honest. We kind of talked through that a little bit earlier, but it's just been really different. We've never had, any softball player, baseball player that's never had time away from the sport at this point of the year. So, it's uncharted territory. I think for me, it's getting to stay home with my boys and my husband, and I'll take that on. That's fine with me. So it's just really different. But like we told our team, it's just doing our small part and making sure we can slow this thing down. It's different trying to explain it to a 4-year-old. He doesn't know why we can't go to Bogle and watch softball and see the girls, and he's quite a Razorback fan across the board. So we go to a lot of events. So just trying to explain to him why we have to stop that, it's been a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. Okay, well, hey, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Hayden, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Coach, just kind of wondering, I know there's seniors that have probably just played their last game, in fact, have played their last game. Obviously, we're in the Arkansas area. We think of, Cindy Parr from North Little Rock. Just your message kind of once again to those seniors who saw their careers quite possibly come short just so quickly. I mean, what was that conversation like directly, just having to explain that, I guess, life's not fair sometimes, but they had to, this sort of situation is unprecedented.
Yeah, well, I'm still really hopeful and optimistic, so I still truly believe that, they will get to play again. The thing that was, for us with our first meeting is, as we were trying to gather all the information from Hunter and our administration, it was also released at that time before we had our final meeting that the NCAA was going to grant relief. So that changes the whole tone of our meeting, because more than anything, it's just nice that they'll have a choice. And so I really hope that our 6 come back. But now it's at least up to them.
Kyle Deckelbaum, you got anything?
I'm good, guys. Thank you.
How about Jordan Black? Chip, are you on here?
Yes.
Do you have any questions for Courtney?
Hey, Courtney, Chip Sousa with the Democrat Gazette. So, looking at the bigger picture here, and this may be hard to answer, but how will losing almost an entire season affect the sport of softball as a whole at the college level?
I don't know that it'll affect us quite as much as other sports. We're not like baseball dealing with the draft and everything. It is going to affect obviously roster sizes and scholarships and all of that. But the big thing is that we'll play again. If this is it's heartbreaking. Our team and all the teams worked their butts off for this season, and it was one of the craziest years in college softball to start. So I think all of us were just really excited to see this season through, just with the parity and the strength across the country. But that's still going to be here next year, and so it's just the time off, and making the most of it, and making sure we're in the right mindset to move forward when we're allowed to.
Well, I know, ordinarily when your season ends, your focus, shifts to recruiting. How will this affect recruiting? I mean, because there's no contact or anything like that. So how will this affect what your normal recruiting pattern would be?
In the backyard.
Well, that's a good question. We typically start recruiting and off campus in June, and they just released that there's a hold on NLIs and all of those things. So, I think we're just kind of waiting to see what the NCAA releases when it comes to granting that year back and how far it extends and how they're going to do that, because it's going to affect our classes, beyond our 2020 class coming in next year. There is a chance it shifts everything for us. And for softball, we just passed legislation recently that slows down the process, but we're still kind of recruited out through our 2020 class. So I'm just kind of waiting to see that decision moving forward financially and granting that year of how we need to adjust. As now, means, our junior class, we get 2 more years. So where we thought one class was replacing them, now we're kind of shifting everything back. And so it's the weirdest thing for probably us as coaches is you're used to having to problem solve and answer questions for the team and for your student athletes. And right now, I know Kyle mentioned earlier, but there's a lot more questions than answers, and that's a really weird spot for us to be in. So it's just waiting and just making the adjustments as we get the information.
Kyle or Courtney, do you think that some of the senior players, once the NCAA makes it official, that we might get to talk to 1 or 2 of them?
Oh yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We'll make that happen.
That's all I have.
In and out.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Coach Diefel?
Yeah, hey, this is Bob again.
Kyle, I had one.
I had trouble getting on the phone earlier. Courtney, are you staying healthy? Is your family staying healthy? Or you obviously have young kids. This virus pandemic deal.
Yeah, my family, we're all good. We just kind of stayed at the house and kind of made that adjustment at the end of last week after a few of my meetings. My mother-in-law was actually here. She lives in Kentucky, where my husband's from, and my husband's actually driving her home today, so she didn't want to fly. So we're just kind of making those adjustments and making sure we're doing what's safe. My 2 boys go to preschool, and so we're just kind of keeping them home as preventative measures. But so we're just kind of doing our part and enjoying the family time.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Kyle, Scotty Borderline. I had a couple questions. That was okay. Hey, go ahead. Hey, Coach, I know you probably had a pretty tight-knit group. I was wondering what it was like being around them on a daily basis and now, just not being able to be around them and interact with them.
Well, that's the hardest part. Even when we were doing our call yesterday, just to say, with the final decision to cancel our season, our team, some of the girls on our team were just I wish I could see on their faces. I think that's the hardest part is just not being around them. This is one of my favorite groups I've ever had the opportunity to coach. It's one of the most united groups. They're just really close and just committed to the group, committed to the program and doing what's best for the program and everyone. So that's the hardest part is just not seeing them every day. And so that's kind of what we've done moving forward is just finding ways for all of us to stay connected and filling that void of for our team, they're 20 sisters and they're best friends. So just trying to find a way for all of us to stay connected, and I think that's going to help us move through this.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, Kyle?
Yes.
Yeah, hey, it's Tom Murphy again. Courtney, one question. If, let's say an all clear is given sometime between April 15th and the end of the school term, can you envision having your team reassemble, and just getting practice in for the rest of the school term? Is there any dialogue on that?
Well, to my understanding, we're shut down through the end of the academic year. So for softball, it's just kind of put us in an early summer of the teams on their own, and we can call them, but we can send them workouts, but we can't have any mandated practices or any kind of chalk talk type video review, or really any meeting. So that's the weirdest thing. But to my understanding, we're done with that through the end of the academic year.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last off to Coach Diefel. All right, Coach Diefel, good luck with that potty break.
Thanks. Yeah, the screaming in the back. We're just trying to keep them from killing each other. So, thanks, everybody. Thanks.